arrive here knowing who we are, and then we forget. In this episode, we're going to cover the mystical meanings of the word signatures assigned to the primordial tones. These word signatures actually can stimulate and activate a more authentic voice. And when used consciously as a daily practice, these word signatures, coupled with the primordial tones, optimize and magnetize the unseen potential in all of us. Greetings and welcome to episode 6. We're going to talk about the extraordinary power of the human voice, which ties into the very first law of the prime laws of manifestation, sound. I'm here with my dear friend, Jenn Savage, and I'm really excited to share this portion because this is something we touch and use daily. And we have access to what this means and feels like. And I have to tell you, most people do not like the quality of the sound of their voice. They recoil when they hear their playback on their phones or recorded messages. They really have an issue. They don't like the sound of their voice. And there's a reason for that. We could spend a long time with it, but I would say that simply put, it's not reflective, or we could say commensurate with the quality of vibration that you know you are. And though you don't maybe know that consciously, energetically you recognize that something is missing or something is off. I hear voices that are pinched, voices that are pushed, voices that are small, voices that are muddled and quiet, voices that are just booming and take up a lot of space. All of those are representative of a quality within the person themselves that I might not be able to read what is going on for them, but I can feel the effect of that sound because it feels sometimes inauthentic, even though they're attempting to be authentic. And what is authenticity? Well, when we're connected to that part of us that is reflective of all the vibratory potential that exists within us, whether it's a soft sound, a loud sound, a vocalized song, there's a breath that moves on that sound, and it feels at ease. I know early on in my days of recording, I was really embarrassed often by the sound of my voice. And I didn't understand why, and I didn't even know how to change it. But as I grew and as I learned and worked with sound, I could start to hear the quality of my voice change. And it wasn't because I took a class or started to do more vocal warm-ups. It was that the sound that I was making was coming from deep within me and was representative of how I truly felt. I wasn't faking it, so to speak. So the human voice, which I found fascinating, is the most powerful element in creating a life of success. And because it's the first prime law, it's the initiator. And if the sound of the voice is not, as I've mentioned earlier, commensurate with who you know you are, there is going to be a distortion. The human voice comes about in utero. And we hear ourselves being born. Now it's 17 weeks. We've developed our hearing. But everything energetically has a sound, and everything that is vibrating produces a sound. Well, your body is building the rudiments of your skeletal structure, your blood flow, your organs, and everything is a harmonic coding. And that information is carrying sound. Well, you hear this as a fetus, as a growing fetus. That is encoded in the rich flow of who you know yourself to be. The other piece is that because the human voice is born out of the two cells that created everything else in you, it's your voice that makes the difference in your keeping your body in a state of flow. It is the quickest access to return your body from a stress state to ease, because your body recognizes your voice as food, quite literally, if it's producing quality sound. And again, I'm not talking about comparing voices. I don't have a voice like James Earl Jones had, or I don't have a voice like Aretha Franklin had. But if I'm commensurate with what I am, if I am reflective of who I am, then you will know me as being true. And that's the authentic place that we want to live. And Jenn and I have been working a long time together on the sound of the voice. I have to say, your voice has undergone some extraordinary changes. I don't know if you care to talk a bit about what that's been for you.
Yeah, I mean, I mentioned it earlier in the podcast in another episode, but I was terrified of speaking up, of being heard. And because of the trauma pattern in my nervous system, I had this catch in my throat, like this very hard swallow. There was just so much.
It's like a hiccup.
It was, but it was, my breath. Just getting stuck right there. And I've always had this feeling of like choking, like my throat muscles just like constrict if I get nervous, just this whole physiological experience of the danger of speaking. Just stay below that, keep silent, and it's taken me years to really put into practice what we're talking about and allowing my nervous system to start relaxing and playing, not having a beautiful voice, not, having the singer's voice, but just my own voice, and how to play around with what that feels like and finding in my body where the energy is stuck and just letting that stuckness have a sound. And then you start feeling the openness in that area and, just using these. And now my voice is resonant, it's clear, I'm not thinking about, am I saying the right thing, or is it coming out in the right, like there is no background experience. I'm connected and open, and there's so much more flow. It's the practice and the work has been remarkable for me in untangling just so many places in my being where there was just not permission to speak.
And the beauty that I hear in your voice is also the quality of the ancestral information that you're allowing to move through you. This is a little known understanding of what happens when we come here, but I have learned and I have come to understand that we select every ancestor, which means every cell, that is going to be part of this experience to do what it is we need to do. And we know what we want. And we sit there in this beautiful cell silo and go, I want you and you. 600 billion cells of ancestors. Now, if we're choked, if we're sublimated, if we're not able to breathe, we have no access to that potential and that ancestral information, which seems incongruous. We think if we can mentalize going back to an ancestral place, but it's not about the lineage in that way. It's about vibration and harmonic information that is being carried.
I think this was one of the most fascinating things for me to really start understanding that my voice is actually unlocking codes in my DNA structure that you call the inner pharmacology, right? Everything my body needs to be in a state of homeostasis, to be in a state of complete and total health and well-being and wholeness, emotionally, physically, energetically, spiritually, it's all within me. And my voice is the key to unlocking and activating that information.
And back to the first prime law, sound. Even the sound of a sigh, vocal sigh. Do you know that 3 of those in a row unlocks 20 minutes of oxytocin, which is the body's feel-good hormone. The body biodynamics and the energetic dynamics are correlated to really bring you into that success that isn't known through a title or a bank account, but it's really the quality of the life you came to explore and to learn from. The tones that I have done over my life, and I teach, and at one period of my life had to sit down and let it apply to me because I was so focused on teaching it that I didn't really apply it to healing for myself. And I say healing, carefully, because I didn't know I could heal from what I was suffering from. And I wasn't suffering, but it was just, I've been diagnosed with a state of chronic hepatitis C and stage 4 liver disease and told I was not going to be cured. And as some of you have, if you've gone to the first episode, we talked a little bit about that. But it wasn't until later when I realized that I was the one needing to be taught. I was the one really needing to apply this work. Even though I talked about it to the world and I taught it to the world, I was not utilizing it on my own and for myself. So here's that, again, the journey and the cycles of learning, that it comes when it comes. And when the student is ready, your inner teacher appears, truly. But yes, as you were saying, the pharmacology is unleashed through the sound of your voice. But it's commensurate on the quality of that sound.
Yes.
So if you are suffering from a voice that you are judging, that you are intolerant of, your own voice, that is small or not, doesn't feel right, if you have judgment about your voice, there's pieces of you keep denying, and you keep denying and pushing away and pushing from you. We want to reclaim that sound. And I begun to understand so much more as I continued to teach and grow with this work of sound. This practice that I'm going to explore now through the mystical lens is called the primordial tones. These are tones I learned many years ago when I was in an acting company in Boston, and it was a Sufi-based acting company. And one day they invited the Sufi healing order to come in and share this practice. Well, as a 24-year-old loop-de-loo, all about stardom, I thought this was an actor tool. So they teach us these 7 tones. And in my mind, and I'm not certain that they gave these to us as chakra tones, but in my mind, I organized them that way. And they lived in me for a long time, only as an actor tool. And I had used these sounds and had my young actors later on, when I had an acting company, when I saw that they were not connected to their bodies authentically, that they would move parts of them, but their sound was not connected. They were living up here and living another life down here.
I think that is really typical of most of us. We live in our mind. I mean, if we're lucky, we can maybe get into our heart space, right? But most of us are so disconnected from the lower half of our bodies. And the intellect is what is operating and driving us. And
we're
so
in survival up here.
Bringing this, the practice brings you into your body, right? It drops you down into the root. Which is where the core of our power actually resides, and
where most of us don't live.
Absolutely.
And have great terror. If you've had any trauma, you've had that occupied area
disconnected,
become startled out of you.
Absolutely.
You will not live in that part of you ever again because to go there opens up a world of feeling. Well, what happens is when we have that kind of trauma, it's not only lodged in the limbic brain and it keeps moving through a trauma trigger, but it's also information that you have no access to because you've shut it down, you've tied it up and put it in a box. And that stress state that you maintain means that most often your cells are shut down. They're dark. That's what happens when we get stressed or when we get traumatized.
That constriction.
Constriction happens, there is no life force. This is just an amazing thing. I would ask myself, how is it that I'm still alive then if I have no life force? Well, that's what survival is. The body wants to stay alive. So it does, and it operates intellectually only. To have access to the part of you that I said earlier about the success that you came to be and who you are by nature and by potential is what every cell carries. So the work that I love to explore with the sound is opening up all quadrants of capacity to feel yourself come alive. This is the most powerful tool. Now there is another tool, I'll be sharing it later in another episode, with the crystal tones, alchemy crystal singing bowls, which I love. But they are a different kind of ally that works with us. Your voice will always be with you. Your voice is to be used. And whether you think you have a good voice or not is immaterial. Even if you've had damage to your vocal folds and have a tiny, tiny voice, just the support of the breath and getting whatever sound you can allow out is going to be good, because your desire is drawn from that fullness of your being. So the tones have a mystical tag to them all. They have the sound and they have a hertz. Now, as I mentioned earlier, I used to work with them as the chakras, but now I've realized that the chakras are conceptual experience of the energy dynamics that moves through the body. And it was created by the Vedic rishis to help the West understand part of the energy system, the complex energy system that is part of this human machine. It's an extraordinary body that we live in. But knowing the Western mind, it's very simplistic. So they had to make it carefully so that it would cover a swath of information and allow us to have a way in to this energy system. As I was working, I came across research, not only research, but more understanding about these sounds. And we've gone so far as human beings to not only structure the human energy system, but we've also given it a note and a color. And I learned through my research and exploration that none of that is going to be true for all of us. Maybe true for one moment in a day in a life of someone, but it's not a blanket structure that we can say, well, I want to help my heart release the pain. So go to an F tone or high hard F sharp, bring the color green in, and I will heal. Right. That's not how it works. Number one, that is all operational from the intellect. It's not anything that's experiential here. We want to get to the experience of who we are through sound. And sound is the most powerful, the most potent, the most efficient way to access us at our core. So the breath is key. But the breath, as I learned through all my yogic studies and work, the breath is, when you make sound, you're energizing the breath. Right. So that is how I healed. Operationally, that's what was happening. But I didn't understand the subtler work that was happening until about 8-9 years ago. Stephen Porges has brought forth the polyvagal theory, which I am so grateful for, because it brought us all into focus and awareness about the vagus nerve. On top of that, he and Karen, and I can't remember her last name right now, they have a new book called Safe and Sound. And they have realized that the ventral vagus nerve is connected to the larynx. There are two networks, dorsal, ventral. The ventral vagus nerve is what does all the magic for restoring balance to the parasympathetic, lowering blood pressure, reducing stress, boosting immune function. Yeah. This is how I biologically healed. Now, there were other components that allowed me to understand why I was in this state to begin with. Right. But I was breathing and making sound and playing my little bowl all the time. So that brought me back to understanding these primordial tones in a new way, free of having to have a right pitch and a right note, and started to work with the hertz. And the hertz is relative to each day. The hertz of the sound of the body in a given day can change from day to day because of sleep, because of the food you ate, because of the interactions you've had with the world. All of that influences the capacity of sound you're able to access. But instead of being a chakra and a root chakra with the color red, it is simply the lowest hertz you can go, bringing your focus to that part of that body, which is where the energy follows that then, and bringing that sound forth. And each of these areas, these sections of the body, are sections of hertz. But the beauty of how the sound penetrates and then vibrates and transmits is once these come online, you really begin to layer up all of the capacity of your body to feel itself. And awareness is preparation. Once you are aware of this part of your body, you are prepared to experience the life force and the power, and most likely the potential that exists, that is accessible to us once we open that up. And we have no idea what is available to us except through our small brain. And bless it, it's not a bad thing. It's just not, it doesn't create an original thought. It doesn't do what the whole body brain does. It can't create, it can't intuit, it can't be inspired, because all of that is a function of a body that is capacity for sensory awareness. So as we've talked many times about coming back home, coming to your senses, coming to feel the life force moving through you, means that we need to set in motion the quality of that sound so that we can bring that part of us back online. So the hertz, the lowest to the highest, begins that process. And I will begin to demonstrate each of these tones. I'm not going to teach how to do them, but this is as much of the teaching I'll be doing. There are other places. I'm on YouTube. There's a free ebook on my website, soundshifting.com, that explains and has tutorials with regards to these tones and how to make them. But this next piece that is part of why these sounds are so potent is really the elixir. So we make the sound, we initiate life. The root sounds like this. Deep hertz. I don't know what note that is. Doesn't matter. And my attention is at a certain point at the lower part of the body. After I make that sound, what I'm doing is creating what we would call a very fertile brain state. The alpha theta brainwave balance occurs. When we make this sound, that fertile ground, if you will, and this is a layman's understanding, is in the ready. So as we made the sound, the signature word for that particular area is now a mystical seed that is dropped into the ground. For that very first tone, the seed is I have. Now, the seed I have is not about I have acquired a lot of stuff. I have a boyfriend, I have a girlfriend, I have love in my life, I have a great job. All of that is immaterial to what we really mean at a mystical level with what I have. And the beauty of this is that I have everything I need to be the human being I came to be with the mission I came to accomplish. Everything. This morning when I was doing my practice, and I do this every morning, I just had this new opening of I am that universe. I am a part, a particle of all that is. And it lands in a new way because I'm still growing and still changing. But when I declare I have, after having set the soil the mental soil to receive that thought. Now I begin to water it with the next tones and the next tones. So that's how these sounds work. So the next one, I'm going to share what each of these signature tones, words, the language means, because they carry value and they carry a creative import. And they become a portal that awakens and opens to a whole new world. So the second one up from that root is right of the mid-abdomen, and the tone is double OH. Oh, very different from Now I'm at oh, but you see that I've got this very exaggerated mouth. Well, my articulators, my teeth, my cheeks, my tongue, the soft palate are all being used, and the sound is vibrating, bouncing off of the wall of this amazing area in my mouth. What that is doing is propagating and awakening vibration throughout my body. My intention is here at this particular section of the body, but the whole body starts to be fed from my voice. So that sound, breathed and vocalized all the way to the end of my breath, is feeding me. When I'm complete with doing these tones, and I do them each for me about 8 times each. I often tell early students to do it a dozen times. Sometimes I only have time for 2 each. But I've been doing them for a long time, so I get the maximum amount even with just 2. But even just sighing is going to help you begin to awaken the sound moving through you. But this particular area, done with this deliberate focus and direction, has a language, a signature, and it is I feel. So you say that, I feel, as if claiming it. And what you're claiming is, I don't have emotions, or I'm not feeling comfortable or uncomfortable in this moment. It is, my feelings have come online. I have sensory capacity like I've never known before. I am more available to myself as a sensory human being. At this stage, I am possibly opening up the 5 senses. But with practice, you could begin to open the super senses, which is where some amazing magic happens. Clairaudient, clairvoyant, clairsentient, and on and on. Suffice it to say that just having access to your feeling states that you have not lived here ever, and all of a sudden you're getting breath down here, and you're getting sound down here, and you're awakening that part of your body that is essential for you to be foundational as you start to move through this world, your life. Then we move to the third area. And this sound is an odd sounding sound. It's generated through this diaphragmatic band that's beginning to squeeze. And so the sound, though sounds like it's a gag reflex, or could be, the throat is very relaxed. And it sounds like this. And I'm tightening here. Soft here. And when I'm done doing my 8 or 4 or 12, I pause. I feel. I do this with all of them. I feel the senses. I feel the energy moving. And then I introduce the word signature. And that is, I act. In other words, I have the power to use my will to change and direct my life. As we were talking about in an earlier episode, about getting off the couch to begin to initiate and direct the energy that is yours and yours alone for you. This is the area that gets so shut down, because when it's damaged, we tend to think everything else is acting upon us, and we have no power at all. We forego knowing that we have that kind of power. And we default to this where we say, am I okay? Did you like what I did? Are you happy with me? Do you approve of what I said or how I said it? On and on and on. And we forget that you are autonomous. You are sovereign. And you have everything. You just stated that. You know. The base says, I have. Now I have capacity to feel that, and now I act upon that. I can deliberately focus my will to choose and not choose for somebody else and not be the sounding board for somebody else. Everybody else is on their own journey. You approve of you. And that's the only approval you need, is that you feel right action that's moving through you. So these are the manifesting currents. This is us on planet Earth. These are also manifesting currents, but these are the ascension energies. These are much more refined. These lower tones are big, muscular sounds that move through us to reclaim our place here as human beings in a physical body on Earth, Earth, Earth. If you're here on Earth, you want to be here on Earth. Many of us have tried to escape. I did for a while, and luckily I have 45 years of recovery this year, which is exciting for me. And I'm really glad to be alive. And I've had people say, gosh, when you get close to the dying, when you think you're dying, won't you want to just go out on an 8-ball or, do some crazy stuff? And it's like, no, I don't want to lose what this is. I have grown and learned and expanded. It's all about the expanse of one's capacity to know oneself. And it is infinite. So as we move to this more refined area, we're in that heart center area. The sound is the wide open sound. Again, you want to make sure your articulator is wide open to increase the amount of harmonics moving through the entire body. And the sound is ah. Ah, wide open, soft, there's no push. I always invite people to begin to breathe into their back, their lower lobes. You get more oxygen that way and better blood flow. So that is that energy that opens this section of your body. This hurts. It's a mid-range tone. You don't have to worry about having a right note. The sound, the language, the word that unlocks this particular portal is I love. Now we understand love. We say, yeah, love is love. Love is good. Love is a big heart. Love is. But the love that we're referring to is the love that you are being reflected back to you. Your nervous system is hearing everything you say and is responding from your nervous system out again. As you make these sounds and you say, I love, who gets the benefit? It's you. It's you love. So you are ensouling that. You are remembering that it is I who love myself. I am devoted to myself in a way as a student would to a teacher, a beloved teacher. You are that. You are all that. You are devoted. You are a disciple of you. So that love is all-encompassing. So as you say these words, you let them just drizzle down, because now they're planted in this extraordinary fertile ground. They're also changing the limbic brain, because once you say these words out loud, the patterning of projection and perception begins to untangle. And the more you work with sound, the more you make sound, the more you listen to non-linear sound, the more the untangling happens. And after a while, those feeling states recess. They never disappear. Don't hope for that, because that's not what we want. It's just they recess back, because we often learn from these. If they start to rise up and say, hi, I'm back. Remember me? Hello. And you say, yeah, I do. Thank you. Bye-bye. So again, I'm using my voice. I say it out loud. I say, thank you very much. I don't need your help right now. But I realize that that sense of, insecurity or doubt or all of those phases that we have gone through to get here, they rise up again from time to time. And you say, or I say for myself, yes, that hurt, and there's that continuity again, because they coexist as polarities. Yes, I hurt, and I'm in a state of wholeness, or I'm in a state of well-being, or I know who I am, and I love who I am today. So these are the conscious changes that come when this part of our body, our sound, our I act is open. So then we move up to this throat, right here between the clavicle bones. And the sound is much more refined. It sounds like this. Ooh. The mouth is open. The lips are pursed around so that it's almost like you're going to whistle. Ooh. And the attention is right here. That's so refined and so delicious. That sound could just go on and on and on forever. And when it's complete, after you've done the practice a few times, that word that is dropped into your sacred garden, as I speak and I am heard, meaning I manifest, I speak, I engage the first prime law of manifestation. I choose to say, and then I am heard, which is your nervous system receiving everything you say. Everything. Yeah, everything. The bitter, the anguished, the sorrowful, the joyful, the expectant, the hopeful, all of that. Whatever you say is heard first by you. And it impacts your nervous system. So if you're one who is challenged by events in the past that have made you small, made you disconnected from yourself, and you keep the language of that story alive, telling the story or seeing it in others and judging it and separating all of the ways we've talked about in other episodes, that is affecting you first. And then that becomes the quality of your voice. And that is what you then speak into the world. Because your voice is only representing the quality of who you are, of who you know yourself to be. Not just that you came in with, because that's in there, but if you don't act upon it, if you don't call it forth, if you don't use it and work with that clay and mold it and allow it to be what it came to be, you will not be able to touch that part of you in the way that you want. So, I speak and I am heard. Very powerful, claiming that you are the manifester. You are the manifester. We move into that third eye region. And the sound is a very high sound. We call it in voice the high tongue. The tongue is lifted a little bit. So that means it's really focusing the sound through the soft palate. And right above the soft palate is the pineal gland. And that gland, because all of these are affecting all the entire endocrine system. The biology is amazing what's going on here with these tones. But the pineal gland is being activated. This is the first of 2 points where we are feeling continuity. We are feeling the flow of that infinity moving back from the pineal to the pituitary, to the pineal, to the pituitary. There is where we open up the intuition. I used to think it was here until I started to work with this and feel it's like, oh my God, this is where it all happens. I see and I know. These are these words. But it can't happen unless I've laid the groundwork. So here is the sound for this third eye area. High E. I pinched so that you could hear that it's coming out of the nose and the mouth at the same time. And when I finish with that particular tone, the word that I'm prepared to now understand is I see. I see. I see myself. I see myself reflected everywhere. I see. I see from a vantage point that is beyond my wildest understandings, because this can't see, but you can. And you are activating that portal. So then we move up to that very high crown area. And the sound is closed off, and this tone is only coming through the nose now. And it sounds like this. And I could go on and on and on, but we'll be here for a little bit. So I thought I'll stop. That tone activates the highest awareness because we've grounded, we've opened feeling states, we recognize that we're the ones that are causal, affecting the world around us. We are in that open space of self-love. We speak our radiant truth, and we move from a place of seeing. And now we move into know. I know. And the mystical understanding of I know comes full circle, because the I know is also I have. I know who I am. I know I am one with all that is. I know you. I know you as I know me. I see my reflection in you, and it is good. It is good. And every word I speak uplifts me and all of us. So that I know then gets placed in that beautiful sacred garden and is watered with your sound. And every day I go through this. Every day I reset my practice. I do this because every day I accumulate stress, life, disappointments, excitement, fears, stepping out into new stuff. And I ground and I say, I have all that I need to do what I do. The extraordinary part in the biorhythm and the biodynamics of what is going on and the psychological pieces that are being addressed have not yet been measured because we don't have the science to support that. We don't yet have the instruments to measure that. But you will have an experience, and you'll begin to feel the ways that you used to perceive yourself in time and space starts to change. The quality of the sound of your voice is so much more rich, and it's not laden and labored with, I hope they approve, I hope they see me, I hope they're okay. I can't tell you how many times I've been giving a lecture, and I hope they liked me, and all of a sudden a dust bunny would appear in my throat. And it was inelegant, and I would have been early on crushed. Until today, I just cough and move on. I think I take a note from my cat. She just coughs it out and moves on. But there is no damage that I'm doing to myself, that I make myself less than because of something that has happened. I just get back up and I keep moving forward. And daily, I'm learning. Daily is my quest to be more of who I came to be, which is why I have chosen this path of sound, which is also why I have chosen to share this with you, something I've never shared this in depth, because it was a very private and somewhat scary because it's not that popularized. Until a dear friend of mine said, so? Yes, so? Do it anyway. So, my invitation to you, should this be an element you will want to explore and truly encompass a sound through your body as a practice, you can certainly go to my website, soundshifting.com. There's a free ebook. You can download that. But if you can't wrap your head around any of this, as we mentioned in the very first episode, sound is your ally. Sound launches you. So sigh. Ah. Not an audible breath. That's not sound. You want a voice, vocalize. Or you want to just shake it off, whatever. You're moving sound. Move the sound. And that begins your practice. That opens something up that you won't know the ramifications, but down the line, and it could happen immediately, something will unlock. Something will open. Something will be knocking from the inside and saying, I'm ready. I'm ready. So thanks for joining me here this afternoon. Anything before we leave, is anything you want to add to your experience with these tones?
You know, I've worked with them for a long time, and just I'm sitting here, and what was new for me, and this is what's so beautiful about, it never ends. Like you said, you had a new awareness this morning using this practice, and there were a few times that I was really just dropping in and listening to the transmission of what you're speaking of. And even though I've been doing these tones for a long time, there's still places in me when I do the I have, as like I'm catching things that I have, which I'm grateful for, but that's not the point of the practice. And so I just was able to like really close my eyes and feel into my own sensory experience when you were at different chakra points. And it just unlocked another level of self-awareness of like, and I really love me. Like I have actually gotten like moved from like such profound self-hatred, whether that was the sound of my voice or the way my body looked, or, just to like, wow, really recognizing like, I love who I am, and then just moving up of, oh, I am listening to myself. I'm speaking and my nervous system is responding. Like it just became so personal for me today in a completely new way. So to just, sort of not participate in the practice, but to be listening as you're speaking has just dropped me into what I can now feel is such fertile soil of my own being, because I've allowed myself to meet those edges of disconnect and shame and fear. And I've allowed the sounds and vibrations to restore my nervous system to a state of being regulated, right? My dorsal, and it's all that catch in my throat is no longer activated. And so today, the practice was so different for me, and I just appreciate you bringing this in my being, just getting some new nuggets today. And it's such a simple practice. And what's happening is profound. And it builds momentum. And it takes time. And over time, you have more capacity. And then the depth of experience opens. And, just riding an entirely new wave of experience today. So, yeah, I'm so grateful. Thank you so much.
Well, and you bring up a point that I want to underscore. There are biodynamics that happen with these tones. And I've heard from people across the globe who have had changes in how their body processes food, how moving through the intestinal tract, moving from a thyroid issue, that all of these anomalies are simply the body off track. The body is not in its rhythm. It's not breathing well, and it's not sitting in its place of power. So these sounds bring us back to that. And I've heard people talk about a family lineage of gastrointestinal challenges and issues, and chronic issues with digestion and intestinal stuff.
Right.
Gone. Backs somehow coming back into alignment. They toned their back into alignment. How that happened, I can't tell you. It's not comprehensible to me.
Right.
I've seen people with severe trauma come back in and say, I feel different in this moment. I don't know how that is. It's like, I get it. I get it. So having a practice of doing these, and a practice for me, that was a dirty word. I just don't do things like that. But if you can give yourself 7 days,
It's a great starting point. Yeah.
and then if you want, I have on YouTube a 31-day challenge. You can go there and do it with me. And I did it it's just a Facebook Live, and I just put the camera on and I just recorded 31 days of my practice, and you can do it with me. And I get letters all the time or emails from people saying, I'm on my 4th month of doing this 31 days,
Yes.
and my life has transformed. It's just totally different. I'm saying that as a something that can happen immediately, or as you said, over time, depending on how you are at ease with this practice. But it will save your life. And you don't even know it needs saving.
It's the truth.
Thank you so much for sharing that. Very
Thank you
important
for
piece.
sharing the practice.
Thank you for being here. We'll see you next episode. Signing off. Thanks again for joining us. For more information, please visit soundshifting.com. There's a free gift waiting for you. We look forward to seeing you for our next episode. And in the meantime, don't forget the God you came to be.